You're listening to Seasons of Bling. Hey everyone, Bill here from holidayslane.com, and I'm coming at you with another episode of Seasons of Bling. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about craft fairs, so everything that you wanted to know from the behind-the-scenes perspective of doing a craft fair. In addition to my website, holidayslane.com, and my Etsy shop, Holidays Lane, I do occasionally vend at craft fairs, predominantly in the fall holiday season, so everything starting in September for fall festivals up through the second week in December. And then I'll do, one or two spring ones. It's all going to depend on when Easter falls. As to whether or not it makes sense for me to vend at those types of events. If you have not listened to one of my episodes before, welcome. Although it's on YouTube, it's not something you're going to need to watch. I'm not going to be showing you anything. It's just going to be me spending some time talking with you. I have heard already from some listeners that they like to throw this on in the background while they're doing crafting of their own. So if that's you, hi, thank you for listening. So it's just going to be me talking for a little while. I definitely love this format still. On the topic of craft fairs, y'all have no idea what all it takes to vend at one of these. It's quite a lot, from determining which ones to go to, planning them out, in some cases applying for them, vending, and then the inevitable crash and great night's sleep after one is done. So I'm going to talk through kind of what ones I do, what ones kind of work for me, mention a few other craft fairs, and what, maybe if it's something that you're thinking about doing yourself, you take some of this into consideration, learn from my mistakes and learn from my experience. But certainly it's going to vary based on what you are selling. And if you're not a person who sells and you're just kind of curious what all it takes to put one on, there'll be a peek behind the curtain. So I hope you enjoy that. What I'll start off with is it's really important to find the right craft fair type, location, time for whatever it is that you sell. And, for me, I have beaded and sequin ornaments, kits, and decor pieces. So it is almost all year, but there isn't as many big holidays at the summertime. Or even late spring for me. That's kind of why I do mostly the fall ones, because you have everything from, Halloween and Christmas, and then people will put all sorts of different styles of ornaments on their Christmas tree. So, you could do more of a beachy, summery kind of ornament, but it still be on the Christmas tree. It also depends on where you are. But it is a lot of trial and error sometimes. You might have to go to one, at least 2 times to know if it's right for you. If you go to if you vend at an event, and maybe it's not a good one for you, there could be other things that impacted traffic or how well you've done that don't have anything to do with you. It could be weather related. It could be that there's another event that's going on nearby. Could have been, not well advertised the first year. It could be any number of things. So I do say if it feels right, and if the other people vending there are kind of, in your category, then you might want to try it for one more year before giving up. And other times, you could go there and it could be a complete train wreck, not well organized at all, not well advertised, and nobody shows up. And that's the kind of thing you might want to bail on after that first year. Believe it or not, there are different tiers or types of craft fair. You may or may not have noticed. So there's, I guess, what I would call I'll just call it the craft fair, where it is primarily people that have handmade items, so that could be your soap makers, that could be your candle makers, it could be your jewelry artists. You might mix in some painters or things like that, people that work in wood or stained glass. But they're actually, making their items and then selling them at the craft fair. There are some craft fairs that allow, like, direct sell vendors. They're not my favorite. So thinking about like Tupperware or Scentsy, where it's a big company, and then you have a person who is just selling those items there. Some will allow them, some will not. Doesn't directly impact me because there aren't any major companies that are selling Christmas ornaments at these events, so I don't have to worry about it. But if you're a candle maker, it's going to be important to know whether or not Scentsy is going to be at your event or not, and that'll be a deciding factor. There are some craft fairs that might allow businesses or politicians to also buy a booth or table. So you might find out that there's like bath fitters or, gutter guards, something like that is there, or so-and-so is running for state representative, and they may have a booth there. I one year was put next to somebody at one of my bigger shows outdoors. They were immediately next door to me, and my sales suffered from that because they were fairly aggressive at reaching out to people. So you would find people walking near my booth, and then they're chattering at them and then they just kind of walk away from both of our booths. So that was disappointing. I'm never a fan when those kinds of things are there, but hopefully you get lucky and they're not directly next to you. I have had one or two where they've been just sort of sitting there like, hey, if somebody comes up to us, great. If not, oh well. They might have giveaways to get people's attention, and those aren't too bad. Again, not my favorite, but not too bad. Another possible combo is the farmers market craft fair. So you'll have all your produce, and then you'll also have mixed into that people that make handmade goods. Those are great because the types of customers that are coming there like and appreciate your handmade items. They're quite happy to be buying produce directly from, let's say, a farmer, or directly from you as a maker. Obviously, they could go to just a chain supermarket and buy produce, but they're choosing not to. So those are great opportunities there, particularly if you are a soap or candle maker. That all fits in with that vibe. The kind of next level up from that would be the combo art and craft fair, or fine art and craft fair. Now, in a lot of these cases, they are ones that somebody can't just sort of vend at. What I mean by that is some event promoters will be first come, first serve. So they will open up registration for their event, and as things come in, they'll take the payment, and then they're booked, and then they're done. There are other events that are where an application is needed. So you would need to indicate what it is that you're selling, price range, what your website or social media handles are. They may ask for pictures of both products and what your tent or indoor display setup looks like. And what's nice about those is a lot of cases what they're doing is they're trying to have a really good balance of a lot of different types of sellers. So if I were selling jewelry, the last thing I'd want to do is be one of 35 jewelry vendors. It's just too much in one niche. So they'll try to say, oh, well, we're going to have X% that's going to be jewelry, X% that's going to make candles or soaps, things like that. And that's good for both the shopper and the vendor. Really, you don't have to be that art fair level. Some craft fairs will do that, but they're generally the much bigger ones. But your art and craft fairs generally are also over 2 days, where it's a Saturday, Sunday, where a lot of these other ones are just, 1 day kind of events. So if it's something that's right for you, because an art fair might be a little more original paintings, and you're talking about several hundred to thousands of dollars per painting. Could be, pottery, sculpture, stained glass pieces. So things that generally do cost more per item. So if yours fits into something like that, then that could be a good route to go. Ones that I try to avoid are the combo flea market craft fairs. So what's really important to me, both, online or in person, is I know how much time it takes me to make some of my items. So it's not just the cost of the materials, it's my time, it's my skills, it's my expertise. And I price things appropriately. Probably still a little too low, but overall, really, I'll just call it appropriate. When you get into a flea market, the mindset of the buyers that are coming in, they're looking to haggle, they're looking for really cheap, inexpensive purchases. They're not really looking for unique, handcrafted, one-of-a-kind, artisanal type items. It's just a different type of shopper. I've never had good experiences with that type of event. So I personally try to avoid them. If you're thinking about it and you do sell really inexpensive things, it could be a good fit for you, but I'm not a fan. And then what's worse to me than the flea market / craft fair is what I call the add-on craft fair. And that's something where you might have a music festival, or it's at a wine tasting in a winery, or you're at a craft beer place. The people that are going to those events are not there to go shopping. They're there for the music. They're there for the beer. They're there for the wine. They're not there to go shopping. Now, it could be a unique fit for you because your items could be all wine related, and then going to a winery could be perfect for you. You can make coasters, you can make etch glasses, all sorts of things along those lines, and it fits perfectly. But just more broadly speaking, the idea of having a craft fair and something else, it just doesn't fit. And I know that there's a lot of people that are trying to do their best. Maybe there's not a lot of events in the area, and they're trying to make it available for more people. But when you're that diluted, it just doesn't go well. I've also seen auto shows, in a craft fair. People are there looking at the cars. They don't care about your handmade jewelry. Generally speaking, there's always an exception to the rule, but the rule that I go by when I'm looking for events, and overall, it's worked pretty well for me. The other thing about craft fairs is, as somebody who has applied to them, you pay your money sometimes a year in advance. Sometimes it could be, 6, 8 months in advance. In a lot of cases, there's no refunds for them. If for whatever reason, it's not weather related particularly, because some of these events are indoors. It might be at a church or a school. Others are outdoors. Now, the outdoor events are definitely much more weather dependent. Water is no one's friend, but even worse than water, you can have a really clear, sunny day and high winds, and that could be dangerous because in a lot of cases you're going to have your 10 by 10 tent up, and even with 40-pound weights on every single one of the legs, there's a good chance your tent could be picked up and either knocked over your own items or blow into your neighbor, and then you destroy their items, and then you're liable for it. There's just no way to tell for sure whether or not it's going to be a good day for your craft fair, because you spend all the time and energy getting ready for it. You go to the event and then it's raining and nobody's, or very few people are actually there shopping. So you have nobody to sell to. So you're already in the hole for the actual space itself. And then what a lot of people forget when they're thinking about whether a craft fair was successful or not are things like, I guess, lost opportunity in making other items. So, if it takes me an hour to make an item and I'm off at a craft fair for 10 hours, that's 10 items that I could have made and put up in my Etsy shop or online and sold that way. So that's a lost opportunity. Or I could be working on social media, or I could be photographing products, or I could be tweaking my website. If there's a new holiday coming up, there's all sorts of things that you could be doing for your business that you're not doing because you're sitting at the craft fair. Looking around, I've been to events that have been in like a firehouse, and there's virtually no signage anywhere. And vendors were just sitting there having conversations with each other because there's no customers, and it is painful. It is truly painful to just be sitting there. Generally, it's quiet, that kind of pin drop feeling. So if you've been a vendor at one of those kinds of events, let me share your pain with me. Let me know in the comments, and describe what it's like so that other people can live vicariously through you. It's almost torturous, and then you get kind of antsy, but those things can be really bad, but at least you know what not to go to. I guess the only silver linings in those cases are because you do have time to talk to your neighbors, you could wander around and see what other people are selling, and you say, hey, are you going to this fair, or what about that fair? And you can get a little 411, little details about what their experience has been. I think some things have been very helpful. I've had a couple people that have suggested craft fairs to me, like, oh, that's you. You would do really well at XYZ. Oh, the cherry on top was, here's an email address for somebody. Let them know that I recommended you. And then you might be able to get in that way. And I have. I got one really great craft fair that was sort of tooth or nail to get in. Part of it could be because I was selling Christmas ornaments, and they didn't really have that many people that were selling them, so that it was a nice fit for them, so they made it work. But either way, you can learn quite a bit from other people. Wander around and look at how people have displayed their items. That'll tell you, you'll know if you like it or not, if you think it works, and then you can either replicate it or you'll know what not to do. So there are some benefits to slower ones, but usually you have some time at some point to venture out. One question I have for, if anybody on here is a promoter of these things, why do y'all have to have it so early in the morning? So many of these craft fairs start at 9 or 8:30, some ridiculous hour of the morning, which, I mean, for the shoppers doesn't matter as much, but keep in mind, we have to be there, sometimes 2 or 3 hours before the event to check in, to unload our vehicles, to bring everything in, to do the setup, and be ready for when things open up to the general public. It could be exhausting. There's 2 events that I go to that aren't that far away from me. I end up getting a hotel room that's really close to the event, just because of how ridiculously, I'm not a morning person. Not in the slightest. So I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to drive, to be there early, to do that setup. It's just, no. No, sorry. So I'll get a hotel room the night before, and luckily the couple that I do that for are really big events, and I do very well at them. So I've covered myself in those cases, but still, it's, what are y'all thinking? I would just love a noon to 5 craft fair out there somewhere. Like, people, please start doing that. Make that the new thing, not the 8 a.m. stuff. But there is, I alluded to it a little bit, there's so much that goes into it. If it is one of the ones where you have to apply, you hear back, you're approved, you pay for it. For me, I have a page on my website, holidayslane.com/events, where I list out where I'm going to be, where I've been confirmed for. And then I'll do social media, where I'll do a TikTok or Instagram. Hey, I'm going to be here this weekend, and come see me. But you have to pack all of your stuff up, because you have to transport your product to the location, right? Now I'm pretty lucky when it comes to my ornaments that the containers that I have for the ornaments are by holiday, so I don't do anything different from a storage perspective. For just normal storage, where it's in my supply room, I'll just take that same box, pop it in the car, and then go to the event. So that part's nice, but you have to make sure that things are priced, whether individually or some kind of signage that indicates how much something is, because you don't want people to be asking, "Oh, how much is that? Oh, and how about that? How much is that?" You don't want them to have to do that. You want the prices to be really clear to everybody. And when you're selling online, that's not something you have to worry about. I don't have to tag anything physically for online sales, but I do for in-person craft fairs. And I've changed, the way in which I do that a little bit, thankfully, because I try to make do all my photography before I tag it, and then I'll tag it and put it away in storage. But we generally need to, if it's an outdoor event, you're going to have to bring a tent. A lot of places require a white tent. There are cheap tents that are out there that will most likely break or blow in the wind, so you want to avoid them. You want to get more of a commercial kind of, a little more heavyweight. But in addition to the tent, then you have to bring tables and risers for your products, because you want things at different heights. Tablecloths, things that say what your company's name is. All of that stuff also has to get packed in the car and transported to a location. You also have to have bags. You have to have materials to wrap and package things up so they don't get damaged before the person even gets home to put it on the Christmas tree. You have to have actual cash, like dollar bills and fives and tens. And again, cash is not something I have to worry about for the online business, because it's usually some type of credit card. But not everybody's cash on them. So then you have to figure out electronic methods. I use Square, and I use Square mostly because it syncs with my Etsy shop, and then also integrates with my website. So I can also use that for in-person. That will take care of credit cards. That'll take care of Apple Pay, Google Pay, all of those pay things. Personally, I don't accept things like Venmo, Cash App. Those are money transfer options, and there's not the protections that we have like we do for credit cards, from fraudulent purchases. Somebody could, have money pulled back saying that they didn't authorize the transaction or what have you. They're just not, they're not as good. I know a lot of people have them. As a society, I'm sure we're moving towards that. We're just, for me, just not quite there yet. And most people will have on their phone either Google Pay or Apple Pay. That's tied to a credit card anyway, so it's not that much of an inconvenience for them to flip to something like that if they don't have the credit card on them. So that works for me. And it also helps me using Square because, like I said, it integrates with Etsy. So if I sell something, it'll remove it from my inventory for Etsy, and then I don't have to worry about keeping track and going back at the end of the day and removing things, because I do sell a lot of one-of-a-kind items, or maybe I only have 2 or 3 of something. And if I sell one of them, there is a chance somebody might buy something online, and then I'm in trouble. But in addition to that, you are gonna have to keep track of your inventory, what you are selling, so you could do a reconciliation later. And I hate to tell some of you out there, you're not gonna like this, you have to collect your sales tax. Just because you're only selling it at a craft fair, you are a business, and if your state requires you to collect and remit sales tax, you're a business, you have to do that. And some states will let you include the sales tax in the purchase price, others won't. It's going to vary. You're going to have to look into it for the state that you're in. And all of that is just the transaction part of it. So after you've gotten there, you have everything set up and you're open. At some point in that day, you're going to have to go potty. So that means either asking your neighbor if you're alone to keep an eye on your table, or you just walk away from your tent for a little while if it's a slow time period, and you kind of run and run back. And in between sales, you're trying to maybe eat a sandwich that you brought, or possibly run to the food truck if they have one of those, and hope that doesn't take too long, because any time away from your table, your booth, whatever, could be a lost sale for you, and it could be a big one. You never really know. It's just difficult. And even though these are handmade businesses, and people are just making things and then selling them, you want everything to be as professional as possible. So, those are the nice fitted tablecloths, not ones that you get at the dollar store that don't go all the way to the bottom of the table and you can kind of see the legs and under it. Yeah, the more, I don't want to use the word real, but the more store-like your items are, that also goes into somebody willing to pay a little more for your items, because they have that perception of value in how you're presenting your merchandise. I think if you were to walk into like a Bloomingdale's or a Macy's department store and you're going clothes shopping, it's a very different experience, and you're okay maybe spending more there than if you were to go to like a Ross or TJ Maxx and everything's all kind of mixed in a clearance section and you're rooting through that. That's when you're looking for the deal, because how it's presented doesn't really matter to you. Whereas Macy's might have, the mannequins, and you're going to have a whole outfit, and you're going to have accessories with that, and it's all packaged nicely, and it's on a rack. All the sizes are in the right order. You could find your item exactly. One you're going to pay more for, one you're not. And it's the same in person, right? And then at the end of the day, usually somewhere between 2 and 5. You then have to pack everything back up, put everything back in your containers, take down your tables, fold down your tent. In a lot of cases, then your car is nowhere near where your tent or location was, so you have to go grab your car, bring it closer to the building or where you are, load everything back up into that, and then you drive away, and your day is done. And for me, I'll stop at a bank usually on the way home to deposit any cash right away, because I don't like having that on me. And then you go home and pass out. Some people will do it all over again the next day. They might have a Saturday event and a Sunday event. I usually don't do that. I usually just do one a weekend. But it is exhausting. You guys have no idea if you've never done one before. And if you have done one before, you know just how tiring it is. Because you're having to have those engaging conversations with your customers. They may be asking questions about how you made it, what went into making it. Some people are very interested in learning much more about the item that they're buying. It just makes it more meaningful to them. And the fact that they get to talk to the person who made it, that makes them very happy. I've gotten a lot of ideas over the years on what products I am going to be making next. That's where I think I've talked about it in a previous episode of Seasons of Bling. That's where I got the idea of doing the ornament kits, because people kept talking about how they remember doing it with their mom or grandmom or aunt or whatever. And then I made a couple. They did well. I made more and more, and now I have a whole line of those ornament kits and have just added Easter egg kits this year. But that's all from conversations that I've had with customers that are looking at my products, or people, constantly, well, do you have it in purple, or do you have it in pink, or this color, that color, or if you hear that a couple times, and then it's definitely time to start making something like that. Yeah, that's it's just so much. It is just so much. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover about vending at craft fairs. So if you enjoyed today's talk, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button. If you want to know, I'm in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, so I have events in Philly, up in Bucks County, and out in Harrisburg. So if you head over to holidayslane.com/events, or just go to holidayslane.com, and at the top there should be a link for my events section. You could see where I'll be at next. Make sure to say hi. And I hope you all have a wonderful day then. Thanks for listening.
Head on over to holidayslane.com. That's holidays with an S, where every day is a holiday.